welcome back again to another episode of Light Skin, and we're on 55. Continue to climb, and today got one of our friends here with us. If you want to introduce yourself.
Thanks, guys. Coach Erik Lofald, Duluth Denfeld Football. Mm-hmm. 55. It's a good number.
It's a good number.
It's a nice kind of whole number, round number.
So. Were you 55?
No.
And that was my next question. Yeah. I was like, "There's no way he's 55." I thought we were actually going somewhere with a number.
I'm small. This is like the same size I played at in high school.
Really?
I was 31.
Okay.
But I just like nice clean numbers for.
What's your favorite number?
Well, it's got to be 31 because that's your playing number.
That's true.
So.
Well, you know what? My favorite number is 7, and my playing number was 70.
Oh.
Priest Holmes was 31. After graduation. So, and there wasn't too many guys who wore that number. There was Pat Berquist, Denfeld grad. This is a fun fact here. Mm-hmm. We're getting right off the bat here with Denfeld nostalgia. Pat, a great friend of the program, one of the best players to come out of Duluth Denfeld High School. He's on one of those pillars as one of the 50 greatest. He wore 31 in high school. I didn't know that until they put it on the pillar, so that even puts it up. But so shout out to Pat. Pat was a referee in the area for a long time, retired this last year with some really cool accolades from the Vikings. So, great guy.
Good for him.
Yeah.
Good for him. We jump back into football numbers.
It's gonna be mad football. So we're gonna talk ball all day.
Just be ready. Well, like always, tell us about Baby Lofald.
Yeah, born and raised in Duluth, man. Born in 1978 out in Morgan Park. We were a steel plant family, basically. My mom's dad worked at the steel plant, so they grew up in Morgan Park, moved out to Esco, and then when she married my dad, they moved back out to Morgan Park and raised myself, my sister. So I grew up in Morgan Park and have just great memories of that place. I love rolling through to Fond du Lac here and just seeing old friends' houses because this is where we grew up. Yeah. And so still go out there. That's where my parents live right now. They're out in Morgan Park now, kind of in the new apartments out there. And I think right around 5th grade, moved to West Duluth and started attending Laurel MacArthur. So went to Morgan Park. That's actually where my parents live, is in that footprint of the old Morgan Park Middle School.
Okay. So, all right, let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
Before Lincoln Park was built, did everybody west go to Morgan Park Middle School?
No, so there actually was, Lincoln was a thing for a little while in where the Boys and Girls Club.
Oh, that's right, that was the school.
And then there was Washington Middle School, downtown Duluth.
Yep.
Downtown Duluth.
And first, a time frame. So Dylan, our oldest boy, he went to Morgan Park. The last year of middle school, going into 8th grade, he went to the new Lincoln Park.
Yeah.
So that's when the old one closed.
Yeah.
Got it, okay. Well, that makes sense. So Nettleton came after the Washington Center closed?
I believe so.
Yeah,
when you start to get outside of the central, the hillside, I don't mess around
You're
with that.
talking to two West Duluth guys.
I'm not an East historian. You have to have somebody on who knows more about that. But so that's kind of the history of that. So went to Morgan Park. We were actually the first 9th grade class, freshman class, to attend Duluth Denfeld. Okay. So we did 4 years at Denfeld. First group that did that. Basically grew up at Denfeld, man. My mom taught there for over 30 years. She taught English. My dad ended up getting a job as a para there when we were out of school. Yep. But man, I just remember he was working for Frito-Lay back in the day, and I just remember growing up in the gym and growing up in the halls of Denfeld, going to all the events. I was joking with Tuscan the other days, like old things like Air Jam. Do you remember Air Jam is the thing?
I do not.
So Air Jam is like guys. Students would dress up like their favorite bands, like heavy metal bands, Motley Crue. This is the 80s, so and they would lip sync and air guitar to songs. And they would dress up like the band, and it was one of my most vivid memories.
I do remember that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it was around even when we were in school, but those are the things that I remember vividly. I remember my mom was the choir director, or not the choir director, the theater director as well. So she taught English and did the theater and did all the musicals. So I just remember growing up in that auditorium, which now crazy kind of full circle. My wife, who teaches at Denfeld, runs that auditorium. So we've now become like the same sort of Denfeld family that we grew up, and so it's actually really cool. So
your mom was is a really great teacher.
Yeah, that's what I hear. Actually, so I had her as a teacher, and I often joke. I mean, I was a pretty good kid, pulled good grades, but I took advantage of her big time and would skip her class, and I had her first hour. So I'd never go to her class, and I'd call her up on the landline phone back in the day, call her classroom, and be like, "Hey, I'm just gonna work at home. I'll get all my work done." And she actually dropped me a whole letter grade from an A to a B for attendance.
Good for her.
Good for her. Yeah. My mom was security in my high school.
Yeah.
And I remember everybody used to say, "Well, like, Pez, you can't get in," because I was bad, like real bad. And I remember this one day, I think we had a riot. And like at breakfast or something, like something crazy. And I remember going through the hall and like I knew my mom can't find me. I got to get out of here. Yeah. Like somehow my mom found me, snatched me up, and I'm a big dude, but I mean, I'm not gonna resist my mom. You know what I mean? You know, was you the one starting?
Yeah.
Blah blah blah. You know. And so she was like, well, if they all get suspended, you get suspended. You know what that means. The TV going, the game, you know. So she was tough on us.
Absolutely. And same with my mom, too. I think she was one of the kindest, most fair person. I mean, you look back, a lot of the students that had her still think of her as one of their favorite teachers. She still coaches speech and debate at Denfeld and was just they just put her in the Minnesota State High School Hall of Fame last year for her work in the arts. So she's finally getting her flowers a little bit too, which I think she's worked really hard and deserves to. So
I remember as a kid, I don't have a ton of memories from high school, but one of them was her class. It was like communications or speech.
Intro to communications.
Terrible at public speaking. I still sort of am.
Yeah, one of the worst. Top 5.
Anyways,
keep going.
I can remember her like just trying to encourage me to stand up.
Yeah.
And it was funny because in high school, like I was loud and whatever, but when you're on the spot, it's different. And I used to hate having to give up and give a speech.
Yeah, I think that was one of her best. You know, we talked about it a lot when she was honored, and the stories that people would tell is how much they were encouraged by her. And that's something that, you know, honestly, that I think about too is how can I do that? How can I encourage kids? We talk about that all the time in football for sure. But she was one of the best at recruiting and by encouragement because she had to recruit kids to speech and debate and theater. So, and one of her favorite stories is CJ's, I think, CJ Ham's sophomore year or junior year, she got him to do the school musical that year.
Oh, cool. That's funny.
Which, you know, here it is, best player in the school goes out way out of his comfort zone, if you know CJ, and do a school musical. So she's always been that type of person, and those are some of the things that I hope, you know, people see in myself as well.
Definitely. So going back a little bit, so growing up, what all sports did you play?
Yeah, so I played everything. I think that's what you did back in the day, right? You played soccer in soccer season growing up. You played basketball, you played t-ball, you played baseball. I literally played everything, and that was it. I mean, I remember, you know, going to Blackmore Field and Morgan Park and playing ball with the boys right after school, or going, you know, out, you know, behind the school at Morgan Park and playing on the football field, and that's what we did. And so. I grew up playing everything. I think when I get to high school, I fell in love. Well, actually, before that, I think in the early generations of what became DJFL was, you know, the West Duluth Football Club and the Morgan Park Football Club. And I remember vividly just classic games against Morgan Park and Woodland and Casey Chester. I think that the golden age of youth football in Duluth.
It really was. So you moved out of Morgan Park before you played football?
So I got to play all my buddies in youth football.
Because when I first started coaching 24 years ago, Bobby Huffman was still the coach out there. And I remember, like, this guy's coached for 20 plus years. And I remember wanting to beat that guy, but it was always so intimidating to go out to Morgan Park and coach against him.
It was an experience for sure. I just remember vividly, like my buddy, we all loved him growing up. And when I moved away to West Duluth in 5th grade, I didn't know like what that meant for me. I signed up for West Duluth football and made friends there, but I did get to play against those Morgan Park teams every year. And those were some really good games. And even the West End games. And I remember thinking, in like 7th and 8th grade, like, we're going to get to go to school together next year. And we're going to get to play together next year. Because Morgan Park won every Super Bowl every year. And it wasn't even close. And it's like, we get to, like, play together now.
Yeah.
And that was a big deal when we got to high school. And I vividly remember talking to our buddies, being like, we're going to be a good football team. And so, I think fell in love with football, then fell in love with basketball growing up. Played on traveling teams growing up. My dad always coached to our teams. That just seemed how it was too. Parents, were always the coaches. Dave Morris coached us. Corey Messel's dad coached us. We grew up dads coaching, and they're really good coaches. They weren't just like the dads who are forced. But like my dad ended up doing everything. He'd go to a baseball game, there'd be no ump. He'd ump. And so that was how we grew up. But kind of fell in love, fell out of love with baseball in high school, and just fell in love with football and basketball in high school. And those really became the two sports that I focused on in high school.
What position did you play in football?
So we were on wing T. I was a fullback on the wing T.
Fullback?
I tease CJ that, like, the OG fullbacks were the years, the Sean Moores, Walsh, and then I finally got the chance as a senior to be the fullback. Todd Weber played after me. And like those were like the fullback and the wing T I thought had some of the greatest plays. They had the GTs, they had the downs, they had the flats on a bootleg. Like they had the greatest plays in that offense. And so that's the position I played. Played a little cornerback. We had enough kids where we actually basically had a full offense and a full defense, and like the very best players played both ways. But again, it was back in the day where you didn't get your dues. You didn't play varsity until you were a senior unless you were a stud. And we had a couple of those kids growing up, but like I remember, you have to pay your dues and work your way into the starting lineup, and you weren't given that as a senior, but like you expected, as a senior, this is your shot.
To play. I remember like when we first got to high school from 8th grade, and we had a big school though, like big school, and most players didn't have an expectation of, well, I can play varsity, as a freshman, because we was good. But I remember getting up there and some of the kids we looked up to, and now you finally suited up with them. Like we had a kid named Big Rome and Steve Lane, and these are big boys. And our line average probably like 6'5", 300 plus. And I remember I came in high school hype. I'm just like, look, dog, I'm trying to play varsity, whatever. And I knew I could keep up with maybe one or two of them. But I told this story before. I remember I was playing nose on JV going against our varsity. And I figured a trap play was coming, but I was like, nah, they ain't lined up right. Came across the line, ain't nobody there. Split this second, I look over, Big Rome, and he's like 340, 6'2", dog, fast, like probably running 4'9", fast at that size. Ear hold me so hard, and I remember I laid on the ground thinking, you want to keep doing this? Let's go. But I learned so much from them boys.
Absolutely.
And then ended up getting, my first game I didn't start varsity, but second high school game I was in the varsity lineup. But I'm still next to these guys, and you think, oh, I can compete? I got drove down the field 5 yards. You know what I mean? It's like, all right, we here now. So
we're going to have to be very careful on this episode not to relive too many stories. But I have one similar to that. Before I transferred to Denfeld, I went to Renshaw for a few years. And such a small school that me being a big guy, I was like, oh, you could start on varsity as an 8th grader. And I'm thinking, oh, sweet. Now, I remember first practice, Matt Woodall. He was a good football player. I don't know if you know Matt or not. But he was running back, and he come across the line, and I was like, defensive lineman. I didn't know what I was doing. He hit me so hard, I thought I broke my ribs, everything. I couldn't breathe. I had a pinched nerve in my neck. And I remember thinking, oh, man, these, like, there's such a big difference from 8th to senior.
Big difference.
Like, they are men, you're little boys.
That's the thing, bro. This is something that it's a weird phenomenon to me right now. Like, I remember seniors with full-grown beards, man. And, like, they were men when we were freshmen. Like, there was a difference where, like, it's not the gap is that close, but like it seems like the gap's a little closer. But I think that's the trap that a lot of young kids fall into.
Yeah.
Is they have a lot of success, playing against growing up, and then they get against guys that have been training all year, and maybe hit their growth spurt or mature or hit their maturity, and they grow into their bodies, and then all of a sudden it's a different ball game. So I think that's the biggest piece that we fight with right now. But yeah, lots of stories, man. Yeah, lots of great stories.
So after high school, when you were graduating, did you ever think, "Oh, I want to get away for a bit"? Or
yeah, well, so I got recruited. I mean, we went undefeated our senior year. We had one of the best teams. I like I said, we were just legendary. The stats still prove how good we were even back then. We lost in the section final game to Central to go to state, and that was devastating for a lot of guys. But a lot of our guys got recruited to play ball to UMD, St. Cloud State, Moorhead. At the time, I was getting recruited by Concordia St. Paul, which was D3 then. And I remember the coach was there recruiting and, offered us a place, you can come play football here, kind of same thing. We don't do scholarships. We'll find out. I had great grades, so get money. And I just remember thinking, nah, I'm like, I played, sports growing up, and it was just kind of like a grind. And that senior year for me was a little tough too. But I just remember being in practice, or being in that coach's office, and be like, "Yeah, I'm good," and I just kind of want to do my own thing and hang out with my friends and live that life a little bit and do what I want to do. And I definitely did that. Went down to the main U for a year because that's where all my buddies were going. And I was like, "Yeah, let's go down to the main U campus and have a good time." And we had a good time. We had too good of a time. I came home that next year with my tail between my legs and enrolled at Lake Superior College. And that was kind of my stint. And that's the only time I've been away from Duluth. Was that 1 year, living down and going to school. And so I've always known that it's home. And I think there was some point I realized, like, I do love it here. Like, there are some things I don't like about it. Yeah. The weather, obviously. I'm a gym rat. Like, I don't like to ski. I don't like to skate. I'm not a big hockey guy. Yeah. But I do love the city. I love everything that, like, I do enjoy mountain biking. I do enjoy curling. There's things that Duluth offers that no other place offers, and I do appreciate it. I appreciate that you can, go up the North Shore and basically disappear if you want, and the lake is magnificent, and those are things that I really appreciate about this place. And then just kind of realized, I think this is where I want to be. I worked for Super One for a long time. I started with Jubilee Foods in high school, so I was working a union job at 18 as a senior, and had benefits and a good job, and I just didn't really feel like I needed to go to college, which is kind of the message we give guys now. It's like, you don't have to go to college and waste money if you don't want to do. You can work, you can get into trades, and I don't think that was the message for us growing up. Was like, you went to school, and so there was a feeling like, well, you don't have a degree, you're not going to be able to do anything. And so there's always that kind of hanging over your head a little bit. But yeah, I decided Duluth was kind of my home, and didn't really have any interest to get away. Yeah.
So you curl?
Yeah.
I that is one sport I've always wanted to do.
I love it. I've always wanted to curl too.
Okay, one day, can you get us out there?
Yeah, and so it's funny, we were talking before we went on air here. John Schuster is co-owner of the Duluth FC. So he was at the game on Friday that I was at, and obviously he's an Olympic champion. And
somebody just reached out to
But you literally, I think that's the beauty of the sport of curling, is that he curls at the club, he curls in leagues. Like, you can go down, you can if you're lucky enough to get in the league now, you can curl with some of the best curlers in the world.
And it's like it's just a 2-man team?
4.
And
well,
we had an Olympic team.
No. Four people on a team, or
how many people are on the team?
So there is a curling with 2 people, a boy and a girl, man and woman, and then a 4-person men's or women's squad. So 4 on a team.
Yeah, I just want to at least try.
I think you can now start to use your social media influence to probably find somebody maybe to get you on the ice. Chris Plies, John Schuster. I think if you reached out to one of those two, they might
put us in, coach. Yeah, I feel like I'd be tough.
It'd be a great video.
It's one of the sports that I took up. I don't even know how I just somebody invited me to play, and it really does quench a lot of the competitive juices.
everybody got that. I don't want to call curling like a nerd sport, but it's like that weird hobby.
Yeah, it's like golf.
Yeah, everybody got it.
It's like...
Mine's just fly fishing.
Yeah, right on.
That's my thing.
Yeah.
People say, you fly fish? I love it.
Yeah.
It's my thing.
I think it's the exact same thing. It really does. Like, it satisfies a lot of the things that, like, you know, you're an athlete, right? There's a lot of things that just naturally you are competitive at. And I always thought curling was, I love the competition. You're competing against other people, but then you're also kind of competing with yourself to like throw that, like golf, to throw that great shot every time. And then the strategy involved is like chess, and that's how it's been described, you know, a lot. Is so it is fascinating for sure. But it's one of the benefits of Duluth, and now the clubs are popping out over the country. But when I started, Duluth was one of the few places where you could 8 sheets where you could curl with some of the best curlers in the world.
Yeah, that's dope. That's fun.
So
you went to Lake Superior College.
Yep.
Did you graduate from there?
No, I've yet to kind of finish or wrap up my degree. That's one of the things we've kind of been talking about lately since I've been back at Denfeld is getting my degree, so I can. There's some different roles in the school that provides, but again,
degree in what though?
Well, I just need like an associate's degree, something where I can get my teacher's license, and that's kind of the thing is like. Since I've been at Denfeld, so I was hired by the school district in December, and with I just wanted to be in the school, and so the history of Denfeld football is like the football coach has not been in the building since Dave Moore's left in like 2005, I think it was. So Frank Huey was always at Lincoln, so he had a connection there, but there's just never the head coach in the building, and so. I'd started looking for a specific job. I didn't want to be in the classroom per se. I wanted the job that I ended up getting as a supervisory para is to have just to kind of be in the building, have some freedom to walk around, work with the admin, and connect with kids. Yeah,
and that's a big deal. We had pretty much all of our high school coaches worked in the school.
Yeah, our
head coach was the gym teacher, our office coordinator ran the cafeteria.
Yep.
Strength and conditioning coach was like a history teacher. Our defensive coordinator was Coach Tech. He was wild. He was like math or something. You know, so we always had that interaction.
Yeah, and I think that is really the normal thing in most school districts. I think that's one of the challenges with IC 709 is are we compensating coaches and teachers to coach? Are we recruiting teachers to coach? Do teachers even want to coach? I think that's something that we talk about a lot, for sure.
Yeah. And I feel like some teachers might not want to coach because you with the kids all day, then you got to see them again after school.
Yeah. And again, I mean, if you're not in it for the money, you're never in it for the money. But if the day's a grind anyway, then the chance that you want to be with them. But man, I see tremendous opportunities.
Oh, for sure.
And I think that's the mindset you have to have, for sure.
Yeah. So tell me how you got into coaching. When did you start coaching?
Yeah, so 2012, my mom sent me an email. I had transitioned out of, I was working at Northern Water Smokehouse for a stint. And I so
Northern Water Smokehouse?
I haven't been there.
Oh my goodness. I mean,
best sandwich
if you guys don't do a podcast there.
Oh, we will. Trust me.
Yeah, so Erik Gert, who's the owner there, phenomenal dude, man. You're gonna love visiting with him, and he is a wizard with smoking and curing and fermenting. It's just he recruited me to work there for a couple of years. Right after they were on Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives.
Yeah, okay.
So that was like back then, right after that.
I didn't know he was on that either. That's cool.
And so he blew up. I remember talking to him. He would frequently shop at the grocery store, and we'd have great conversations. And then it's like, man, what you do is so awesome. Can I just come and like clean can I be the janitor and I'll work here? And he offered me a job because he was so busy. And I got to work 3 years down there, which was incredible. And then I left and got a job with Fellowship of Christian Athletes. And that gave me the flexibility that I finally had, like, kind of craved a little bit. Like, I wasn't looking to get into coaching.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't really on my radar, but my mom sent me an email because, you know, she would get all the district updates about openings. And there was an opening for a part-time football coach that Frank Huey had put out. So she sent me the link, and I thought, oh, that's so I should put an app. I had no idea, if Frank would see it or hire me. And he called me like a week before the season started and offered me the job. And I started with him as a part-time pay stipend coach, helping out with JV. I remember Jack Shear was the coach then. He was the head JV coach. And so I kind of, and if you know Jack, I mean, Jack's been around for a long time, and his wealth of knowledge is incredible.
We had him down at the junior league for a couple of years.
Yeah, he was tremendous.
Oh, just to have somebody to do our D-backs.
Yeah.
He was great.
But he coached me
He
at
coached
Denfeld.
me as well,
And he was an offensive guy then, and so his knowledge of just football, and so I kind of got to sit and learn from him that first year. I think I just helped with running backs.
Okay.
And we were still running wing T stuff, and so I could recall all that stuff, and just help with Jack and just learn from him. And he was so kind, and he's actually on my staff now. He's still with me. He's one of the first hires when I came on. Is like, I want you to come back.
Yeah.
And we just recently lost Coach Huey.
Yeah.
He was my coach and offensive coach.
Yep.
And I loved both him and Dave Moores, but I think linemen always had a soft spot in Frank's heart.
Yeah.
And vice versa, and so we always really liked Frank.
Yeah, and I shared at his funeral. I had the honor of speaking there, a complete honor. That he was the one who gave me the chance, right? So Frank was my defense coordinator in '97. Dave was my head coach. Dave was a close family friend, so I always thought very highly of Dave. I said this in the eulogy too. Is like at the time, and I didn't know it until I could really reflect, is how good of a coach he was and how fair he was. I thought he was a hard ass. I thought he was unfair. I thought he was a blowhard. And what I learned when I got to know him is that how much he cared about us.
He really did.
He really did. And you don't get to see that often. And sometimes coaches are shy to show that side of them, is that you have to always put on.
Yep.
And so I really appreciated at least to kind of get to reflect on that moment at when Frank passed, and how he gave me the opportunity to coach in 2012. Like that was the start of my journey in 2012, and all the roles and all the trust that he put in me, because I had no experience. Like I'd never coached before. This was my introduction to coaching, and so to be able to learn from him, to learn from Dan Dupay, to learn from guys, all the assistant coaches that came through, Brad Havron, Verl. I mean, just a myriad of coaches that he brought in that you just were so intelligent and had so much experience. Like I just was like a sponge, and I learned so much. And I remember reading books. Those first couple of years, that's how I'd always encourage every coach to try to get better every year now by reading a book, physically reading a book or listening to a book. And I read a book called Inside Out Coaching by Joe Orman. And
got that book.
yeah, it's a game changer. For me, I remember reading at the end of my first year, and I just remember, I wasted a year of coaching because I didn't have this information. And it really is, Joe puts you on a journey to develop your platform and your process and your purpose for coaching. And I remember reading that book, and not really, no aspirations of being a head coach. I just wanted coaches to realize what their purpose was and help them to do that. And it's not like Frank didn't do that. He took a lot of the stuff that I talked about, but he had things that he wanted to do, and I was totally fine with that. And all I wanted to do was serve him. That's all my role as an assistant coach with him was to serve Frank the best I could, to serve my athletic director, whatever they needed done. And so I really became that guy that Frank could rely on to, make sure the buses were on time or we had permits or things were set up. And so having done that, I really got kind of an inside look at what it looked like on the other side of coaching.
Yeah, for sure.
All the administrative stuff that comes with being a head coach, because that's the role now is my coach's coach. And I have to do all the administrative stuff. And that's why I bring in talented, smart people to do that, right? And so Frank gave me a chance. And then we had started to he had dropped some hints in 2017 that he was thinking about retiring. He was really on the fence. Didn't want to do it. And when we lost to Cloquet in the section semifinal game, he got in front of the team and just he could barely hold it together. Yeah. And then once he goes, everybody else on the team is bawling. Yeah. But he just said, it's time for the old graybeard to hang it up. And I think we were all pretty shocked because he didn't tell us that that's what he was going to do. And I think once the season's over, and so there is that mourning period for that, and then you have your coach say like, I'm not going to coach, and then so I don't think I thought of myself, but it was like, is this how it ends? Is this? I guess I'm done coaching football because they're going to bring a new coach in. He's going to bring his staff. Yeah. I remember we didn't ride the bus to the game. I rode up there with Dave and Tony Klaas, and Dave and Tony are still with me, and we had been coaching JV football together. We had such a great time coaching that JV team over the years. And we were riding back to Denfeld in Tony's car, and we're just kind of looking at each other and go, well, what should we do? And they both looked at me and they said, you need to apply for the job. And like I said, I was not looking for any sort of, hey, should I do it? It was seriously like, well, what's next for us? What should we do? And so I started to think about it. I prayed about it a lot. My faith's a big part of my background, and so I started feeling like this was something that I was called into. It was to be the head coach. And then I started to get really excited, right? Because all the things that I was really passionate about, we could do it. Yeah. We could do it. And I can do it because I'm the head coach. And I can give people permission to do it. And so I started to really get excited. So I remember I met with Tanya Sconyers. I met her in her office, and I said, what is it going to take to get this job? What are you looking for in a coach? And she laid out a few things, and I laid out, my vision for the program, and I did want to take the program in a different direction, for sure. I thought that was one thing that was super important, and so I said, hey, it's probably going to be a new coaching staff. It's probably going to be, and nothing against Frank's guys, but I think the feeling was, let's start over, let's start fresh, let's start something new, and that's kind of the vision I share with Tanya. Went into my hiring interview, and Garth Heikkinen's in there. And Garth, who's a good friend, legendary football player in this area, if you know Garth and his story. He's asking all these questions about practice schedules, and I had all that stuff. But I kind of told him, I was like, hey, man, I can go over scheme, I can get on the whiteboard and chop it up. I'll tell you one thing, nobody knows this district like I do. And so, because they were asking about practice times, I was like, well, the reality is like if I get an hour on the field because of how the field is used. And so I knew coming in, like the limitations, there are some limitations in this district with facilities. I knew exactly what I was getting myself into. I thought that was an advantage. I shared that to him. I was like, hey man, our scheme is going to be a little bit different. We're going to spread some things out. We want to go fast. Tony had a vision for the defense. I had a vision for the offense. I ran the offense for a while. And then I came up with like this, which we still use, which you guys will see, is just what it's called. Well, Matt calls it the Bible now, but it was a handbook. It was basically just went from everything that I had learned in 12 years through working at Denfeld. My coaching mentor is Cal Barr. Oh yeah. So you know Cal. Yep. Cal was a UMD football player and baseball player in the 80s. I worked with him on FCA. He became one of my closest friends, but the guy who I just like literally absorbed knowledge from, and he was so smart and so knowledgeable about everything, and put together this handbook just to all encompassing. It was here's what we're going to deal with emotional control. Here's what we're going to do in practice if we're having trouble with confidence.
Like he runs he's a rep for three-dimensional coaching.
Yeah. So like three-dimensional coaching is this concept that coaches need to be coaching in all three dimensions. So there's a physical dimension, which every coach knows. Yeah. And but what we started to learn is very few coaches coach in the second and third dimensions. They don't have a plan for the psychological elements that challenge every single kid that we come across. And then there's third dimension issues that like identity and purpose that almost no coaches deal with. and mainly because when you start to get into professional and college levels, you hire out for that thing.
Oh, yeah.
But not at Duluth Denfeld. I don't have a budget to bring in a sports psych guy. But Cal Barr will come in and work with me, and I have that background too, working with him. And so I think, having that to bring into that interview and to show those guys, I thought, like, when I walked out of there, this has got to be a slam dunk. And I felt really good about how the interview went. And Tom Pearson made me sweat like a whole weekend because he was out of town. He's like, well, I didn't want to call you until I got a hold of the other people. And I remember sitting in my living room and he said, you want to be the next football coach at Duluth Denfeld? And I was still like,
it's like draft day.
Oh my goodness, bro!
Your whole family standing around.
Well, it was just me. We hadn't had kids yet. So, No, Toby's born. What do I do? Toby's born. So Toby, I think, was 3 at the time, or one or 2. I got to get my timeline.
You forgot about your family. He got a job.
Yeah, I'm a coach.
Left his wife.
Want to get milk, son.
But I remember I was alone in the house. That's all I knew. And told Tom, yeah, let's do it. And then I think I sat there for seemed like an hour, maybe it was 10 minutes. And it just the weight, kind of the weightiness of the position. And I spent good 5 minutes just sobbing, good happy tears of joy, yes, let's freaking go. And part of that too, and I shared this in Frank's eulogy as well, is but at that point, I'd been back in the program for 13 years, or now it's 13 years. You learn so much about the history of that school and the traditions of that school. I knew them as a player, but man, you really kind of feel there just haven't been that many coaches who have coached football at Duluth Denfeld. And when you start to go back and you start to look at the names who've coached there, we're talking about some legit legendary coaches.
Oh yeah, Walt Hunting, I think, coached, didn't he?
Yeah, so Walt Hunting was the first Denfeld coach who, now is his name is the moniker for our mascot. That's why we're called the Hunters, is because of Walt Hunting. And 2 years ago we rebranded the stadium, from Public School Stadium to Walt Hunting Stadium in Marv Heikkinen Field, honoring 2 of the most successful coaches in Denfeld history.
How was Garth related to Marv?
I don't think they are.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just have the same name.
What are the odds of that?
Yeah,
wow.
Up north in the Swedes or in the Finns.
Yeah.
And so when we rebranded the stadium, that was a big piece of it, was celebrating the history of the program with the pillars. We had a huge banquet in the Commons and invited all the legends back and took pictures.
I'm sure Joe Vukovic was a big
Joe was part of it. Tim Doyle was part of it.
Okay.
I had the honor of being a part of it. It just going through the presentation of the history of the school and the program that was the sort of thing that was going through my mind at that point. Was how much of a privilege this is to be a coach.
Yep. How was it going into your first full year of now being the head coach? What's that like?
It's a nightmare.
Yeah.
And I look back, we got smoked every game. It wasn't even close. And part of it is and I don't think this is why Frank left, but it was a good time for him to leave because he graduated so many kids. He graduated 18 seniors. Really good, and they were all starters, basically. So the team that I inherited had 2 kids who had legitimate varsity experience. One of them was our starting quarterback, which was awesome. And I thought I could build our offense around him. But we really didn't have we didn't have the time or the capacity to develop kids right away to play varsity football who had no experience.
Who was the quarterback at that time?
Cade Shea.
Okay, that's not. And Cade played for us.
Yeah, Cade, tremendous.
Oh, yeah,
tremendous
his
kid.
Accuracy, even in 8th grade, was amazing.
Yeah, he started as a sophomore. Frank's last year, he was a sophomore. He was a junior for us, and then he went and played junior hockey, so he didn't play as a senior. So we had him for 1 year. He broke his collarbone in the Proctor game, which we were that was going to be our only win of the season. Then he got hurt, and it's so we had to start.
No shade at Proctor, but
yeah, no shade. But that was our one winnable game. It was a competitive game. He gets hurt, and so that was kind of the end of that season. But that first year was rough, bro. And everything was new. Yep. And we did everything. I mean, it was so different. And I don't look back and go, man, I wish I would have done it different. I think we did it exactly how I want to do it, and I think that's how you build a program.
You learn so much more from losses than you.
Oh, 100%. And we got beat. We got beat.
So you learned a lot.
We learned a lot. And it was hard, man. I mean, those are hard times when you preach a message of culture and you think the kids are buying in, and you can feel it, and then you go out and like just underwhelm, and then the rubber hits the road. And so those were good opportunities for us to be true to who we are, and we're not going to change. You know, our numbers were down, and so, you know, there were things that we had to work on as well, just as a staff, is like accountability was still a huge issue, is how do we hold kids accountable and have them not leave the program and be okay with that. That was definitely a learning process. It was probably one of the hardest things to do, was to instill a culture of accountability. So that first year was rough, bro. And then COVID happened that next year.
That's what I say. You went right into COVID.
Yeah, I do. When I reflect on those first couple of years, the other piece that first year is public school stadium was closed for the first part of the year. We didn't play a home game till our third home game because they were redoing the track. So we played our home games at Proctor. So I played my first 2 home games as a coach up at Proctor. And like, no offense, again, it's a great facility, and they had just put on turf field, but like,
it's different than being home.
Well, you had to take a bus from your, like, there's just no like, oh yeah, we're gonna make it our home. There's just kids can't adapt to that.
Our senior year, all our home games were at UMB.
Yeah,
because they were building
the stadium. Yeah,
because obviously when you played there, it was grass. Well, I never got to play at the new stadium because then, of course, my senior year, the old stadium was getting torn down. That was a great field, that old one. I mean, the visiting bathrooms weren't so great.
Yeah, I mean, it was, by the end of the season, there was not much of a field, but yeah, good times. But so that first year, like, there were challenges. Like, we just couldn't do things that we wanted to do because, like, we couldn't practice. We couldn't have home practices, so we were practicing up at Lincoln. So we had to move our locker room up there, and like we had security issues and things like that. Is like we really struggled that first year with some things that were not in our control. And so you just chalk that up, and then COVID happens, right? And I try to forget those times because it's so messed up when you look back now, but. From going from not having a season to having a season to not having a season to having a season, like literally in weeks, like we're going to cancel the fall season altogether. No, we're going to have a spring season. You're going to play in the spring. No, you're actually going to play in the fall, but it's like everything's getting ramped up at like it's like, how do you do that? And then all the protocols that everybody was putting in place and how you could practice. The district came down super hard on facilities, and we couldn't use like our weight room. So we had to be creative. Tony Radloff, I give a ton of credit for developing our program in those early days. He was our O-line coach at the time. He's working on the police department. He was doing strength and conditioning for us, and we basically moved our weight room outside. We had to do it, but we couldn't, like, you can't bring squat racks out there. So he really improvised. And I remember some really cool things that we did out there, but it wasn't the same, man. Like, how do you build a team when you can't be in the locker room together? You can't be in the weight room together. And so, you know, we played. We got our first win as a program against Hibbing that year. Keyshawn Beckham scored like 6 touchdowns, bro.
I remember that game.
Man, he just went. He went off. He was a dog. He was a dog.
Man.
He's one of that. I mean, and that's the thing. That's what we lament about just that whole period. Is like he could have went down as one of the greatest, but because he was robbed of that year because of COVID. But yeah, I remember telling him, I'll call him the plays. I said, hey, I'm gonna get you 6 touchdowns this game, bro. We were gonna win this game, and we won that game. It was our first win. I remember how happy we were as a program. There just wasn't a lot of winning around Denfeld, period. I mean, Frank had a great last year, but we struggled. You know, we've struggled had struggled as a program, and so yeah, COVID happened. We play 4 games, and we have a kid test positive, and if you remember, that means you're done. You're in protocol for 2 weeks. And I remember, and it's Carter Kilroy, so Carter's still a good friend, and he has to try out with the Harbor Monsters. I'm hoping he does really well. I remember he was the one who tested positive, and they lost his test and they couldn't find it. So we had to wait like a whole nother week. So we lost 3 weeks of our season. Then they by that time it's the playoffs. They said, "Oh, you can play one playoff game against Hermantown." All right. I remember this. I mean, the weather was so nasty at that time. We're like the turf was a sheet of ice that we practiced on, and we lost that game. And then they ended up canceling. They didn't even finish the playoffs, and they canceled after that. It's just like, what just a dark time. And I remember calling, man, and I called it the COVID cloud because it just seemed like every day you didn't know what was going to happen.
Yeah. Yep.
And how do you how do you coach like that, and how do you play like that, and how do you it was such a challenging first 2 years, and we really, I mean, we felt it as a program, and as well as other teams did. But this is us trying to start something brand new, and we just we're facing all those outside obstacles. And so year 3 happens, man. We have a pretty good team. I thought we had a good team, and I think the competition that year is just so good, and we didn't have we didn't have the Twins hadn't broken out. That was kind of their breakout year a little bit. They were sophomores, and they didn't really get going that year. And we couldn't win a game that year. Went 0-8, and they start you start really doubting, what you're doing. And but I credit, my wife. I credit Matt Allen a lot. Matt has been one of the the bedrocks of our team, and his commitment to our culture and our core values is incredible. And he's somebody who I think carried me for sure through some pretty tough times as a coach, where you do what I talked about purpose earlier, man. If you don't have a purpose as a coach, those are you're going to be those times are going to be really hard to work through. And so, but we got to that next season. We won a couple of games that year. We beat Rock Ridge, which was a game we'd penciled in that we should win. But man, that was another good. I mean, every team every week was really good. And our cross games, the teams that aren't in our conference or in our district, were Aiken and Esco. Well, Coy's a junior that year. I mean, he's a dog. We actually played him pretty good that first game. We were competitive. But, I mean, we had to play Esco when Coy was a sophomore and his brother and a junior. Excuse me. And we had to play Aiken. And so when we got to Aiken, it was our homecoming game. I think we were 1-3. And Aiken was ranked 3rd in class through 3A. So this was a good team. And we went out and we balled, and we won that game. Tay Mans had a phenomenal second half, and the Twins kind of went off as well. And we finally started to figure it out. And so won a homecoming game against a ranked team. And I remember, I mean, people had reached out to me what the heck, man? Just nobody had us penciled in winning games, as not alone just beat a team ranked in state. So I thought that was a defining moment in our program, that we kind of proved hey, Rayjan's a sophomore, Tay's a sophomore, the Twins are juniors. Mace Brooks, that was his first year as a starter, that sophomore year, his junior year. We had really good quarterback play. We had KJ coming as a junior. We had kids that were coming back. This was a young team. And you could see them kind of growing up right under the lights. And then we play East, and we're losing that game, get in the second half, make a comeback. Tay goes off. And again, just really has these, what would become his signature, kind of just, he does what he does. And the Twins were doing their thing. And I remember we're driving for the touchdown, and I turned to Matt, because Matt had started calling the plays by that time. And I said, we're going for 2 if we score, because we're down. If we scored, it was going to be we either tie it with a field goal, which we don't kick, or we win it with 2. And I said, we're going for 2, so I have it ready. get down there, get the touchdown, and I remember Leo Newland makes a tremendous catch on 2-point conversion right inside the pylon. And Pat Berquist, who we were talking about earlier, the Denfeld grad, was right there, and he signaled touchdown, and that was pretty much the game. And so that season we go 3-5, and now we're like, we can feel the momentum turning, and and that's going into that next season we had such a dominant senior group, and they were so committed to everything we're doing. And I remember they were saying, we're going undefeated this year, and they're talking all that. And it's like, ooh, it's okay, let's pump the brakes. Like, you want to like encourage your guys, but it's like, what I did is I questioned their dedication to off season, and they responded. I said, guys, you ain't going anywhere the way that we do our off season. And that's when I felt our off season program really took off with that group as well. And yeah, we have a tremendous season. Go 7-1, which leads into last year. We go 5-3, which was a little disappointing. I thought 6-2, we deserved to be 6-2. We have Tejas makes history basically, or close. It has one of the best. It turns out to be, we knew, one of the best running backs in the state. I think he's going to go down as one of the best running backs in Denfeld history. And so we take a program from 0-8 to where we're at right now, and the expectation now is to win. Yeah. We want to go back to where we were.
To at least have a winning season.
Absolutely, yeah. And realistic. I mean, I think you have to be realistic. Are we going to go 8-0 every year? No, but we expect to be successful for sure.
For you personally, how have you seen your growth as a coach? And what's some areas that you feel like you've grown in the most?
Yeah, I've always wanted to delegate. I always felt like, man, I know football. I am definitely not the smartest guy in the room. And I never want to be the smartest guy in the room. And I know could be counterintuitive to some people. Yeah. But I want to surround myself with the best people, and I want to hear different ideas. I don't want it to be my way or the highway. I think that had been my experience too often, is this is how we do it. And it's not that coaches didn't have input, but I want to have coaches have input. So I think that's somewhere where I have grown. I think the biggest part was delegating calling plays and calling the offense, because it was my offense. I installed it to give it to Matt and to allow him to have the freedom and to trust him. And that was a hard thing to do. And Matt and I laugh about all the time. I'm still going to get after his ass.
Oh, I give you a ton of credit, because I'm a play caller.
Yeah.
No, even once in a while, just to give up one play is hard.
When you've waited to call plays your whole career, and then you get that chance. But I really felt like I do correlate the moment that the year that I gave up play calling to having more success. I really do. I felt like it gave me the freedom to pay attention to other parts of the team. Yep. So it really gave me more time to invest in the off season. Yep. So we really revamped what we did in the off season, and what we did for practices to start the season. We wanted to have a college vibe when you walked in. So we said, all right, we're going to start in the lecture hall every day, just like they do in college, right? And we're going to have a team meeting. We're going to go through the schedule. We're going to have a snack table, where you always have something to eat or something to drink. We're going to take care of our guys. We're going to make you feel important, and we wanted to be professional and do it really well. And so that gave me time to develop that. It gave me more time to kind of look at the defensive side of the ball with Tony and to challenge him on what he was doing. And situationally, in game, this is the biggest thing that I've learned. It's not I don't know how they do it actually at the NFL level. I don't know how because there's so much situational.
It's crazy.
Moments in a game that I can't be thinking about what next play call I have to, because the situation needs my attention. Yep. So, excuse me. So that's been probably the biggest area of growth, is just really being comfortable with delegating those jobs. I think relationships too is making sure that my relationship with my wife is rock solid. So I mentioned earlier that probably forget our anniversary date, or forget how old my kids are sometimes. But
that I have kids.
But also trusting my coaches, where, man, if I have to go, if I have to be a dad, I am comfortable doing that. And I don't know if I was like that the first day. I'd bring them we always want to have a family culture. We want the kids to come around, but like to really feel comfortable with, I don't have to be there 24/7.
Yep.
And again, there's a lot of coaches who just won't take a break because they don't think they can. And that's why I bring in the best people to coach our guys.
Yeah. And it's having that, going back to that trust thing, having somebody that you can step back at least certain parts of the game so you can kind of focus on like the development of the kids, outside of football.
Absolutely.
And we talk about that a lot when we coaches, how do we develop these guys off the field? And if you can do that, it helps so much with success on the field.
Absolutely.
And but that starts with just like, who are your coaches?
Yeah, having that holistic approach to coaching the athlete, and that, Pez, honestly, that's why I love what you do, is because your relationship with the kids is something that I didn't have until I moved into school. Like that has been the big benefit of being at Denfeld. It's like, it's not even the Denfeld, it's not even the football players, it's all the other kids, because what happens is football players influence those kids, and they're around 100%. My football players, and those football players also influence my kids, and so I want to have the pulse of what's going on in the school, so I can address those things, because it is like I can't focus solely on X's and O's because that's not the game.
Exactly.
Right? I have to make sure grades, grades are the challenge. Grades and credits and attendance, like getting these kids to walk across that stage, right? And so we talk about our core values a lot. Like we call it Hunter Pride. It's perseverance, responsibility, integrity, decency, and enjoyment. So we say, like, when we watch those kids walk across the stage at Denfeld, those are the characteristics that we would love to see our student athletes have developed in their time, or developing, or come back and have those. And we always talk about I always imagine, like, man, what would it look like if we could get this done at the football level, and it just spreads to like the whole campus, and then it spreads into where they're living, like the center. Like, what would it look like? Like, I think that's a real thing. I think we can do that, right? And so that all starts with like holistically approaching the student athlete, and I think that's one of the reasons why we've had some success, because when that student athlete and you know this, so I'm just preaching to the choir, is when they know that you love them and you genuinely care about them.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
They'll do anything for you.
Oh yeah.
So when you talk about running through a wall for somebody, that's the type of kid that will do that, is because they've experienced your love.
Yep, for sure.
Right? And that, now what you know too is, the challenge is like, that love doesn't mean that I'm going to enable you to continue to make mistakes. And, right? At some point, we have to have a conversation about what you're doing, and we have to hold you accountable to that. Because to me, if you are enabling kids and not holding them accountable, you're not loving them, right? And you're a father figure to a lot of these guys. I am. You are, right? Because they don't have that in their life. That's why they go to the center, man. Because they need that. They need that connection, and so. That's what we try to provide in the football program. That's why I want as many kids. I don't care. Like, bro, I walk the halls and I see how many kids should be playing football, but not because they're the biggest kids on school. I'd love it to be that way. But like, you need this team. Yeah, 100%. You need to be on our team, right? Because we are going to set you up for success.
It's wild. Our head coach, I remember our head coach in high school, the first time he came down, and they always used to come watch at the beginning of the season, but they don't really come watch until you in 8th grade. And I remember we just had played, to me, the best game other than before I got to college. And we had played this team called Kingsway. Halftime, we were down 34-0. And they had these two big white boys, these brothers. One was a fullback, one was a running back. And they were dogs. And I remember we go into halftime. Everybody disappointed because the high school head coach there too was like, what the fuck we doing, whatever. So we go back out, we win that game, 34-37, okay? And Coach L came up to me, he was like, hey, you're a good player, But he said, that's not why I want you to play. Yeah. He said, you need to play up here. Because I see the path that you're walking outside of football. And he said, this is how we're going to bring you back. And I remember thinking, at the time I'm young. What you know about my life outside, you know? But they really poured it. And we had gangbangers, our whole team. And that's all it was. I mean, it was the only time we hung together. When we allowed to hang together was on the field. Other than that, you beefed. But he brought us together so much, you know, that when we was on the field, we forgot. We didn't care about neighborhood or nothing. We just knew we didn't want to disappoint this guy.
100%, man.
And if that was good enough, that was good enough.
Yeah, there's a cool quote, right? One of the two most important words in the English language is "coach says." Right? So just how much influence a coach has on a player is like, well, coach said, right? Almost as much as the parent. For sure, you know, we're creeping into school. Like teachers don't have the respect that they deserve, but the coach, and which is a little wild, honestly, to be transparent. Like one of the challenges we're having right now is that isn't working with a certain group, right? And so what happens when I don't have the leverage of coaching? And I've told them straight up is like, hey man, at some point you're going to lose the resource that I can provide you because you're making and that's the enabling, you know, the don't enable them and hold them accountable. It's like at some point your decisions are going to be your decisions, and so you know I think the biggest challenge coming up now will be, does the coach have as much leverage as he did even 2 years ago? And so I think that's something that the discussion that we're going to have for sure is how do we get these kids to realize the incredible resources that they have.
Definitely. And to be honest, create that leverage. One thing I'm very humbled about is, and it's wild, but of the pool that we've created, just say from NYS alone. And the work that we've done in the community and the relationships we built. You know, now, I sat on the court call the other day where a judge looked at me and said, all right, Pez, you decide what the kid. I'm sitting thinking, how the hell, how did we get here? You know, but it is just a humbling thing to say, okay, they know that we want the best for these kids. The kids know we want the best for them. The outside forces know we want the best. So how do we translate that into just buy-in for life?
Absolutely. You know? Well, and two, man, you've worked incredibly hard to get that humbling experience, that leverage. Sure. But and so have we. But man, that is the long game of coaching. That's why it's like, you know, thinking back, you know, this will be my 7th year as a head coach. Now my 13th year coaching is like it's taken like half that time just to even build relationships, and then after 4 years you start over. Which is going to be the difference for us now is we're going to have access to kids earlier, and so they're going to graduate and seniors, and hopefully they're coming back, man. Right, and hopefully they want to be, you know, a part of what we're doing. You're coming to games, or they want to be officials, or they want to be coaches, and have the same impact. Like my dream is kids would come back and coach youth football, right? And that their passion for the game would be shared with the kids who are growing up in DJFL like me.
That's one of my favorite things is, and we've got a bunch of them. Kids that used to play for us, they come back and coach. And I was that guy. I mean, I first started coaching, just backing up a little bit when you talked about whether you wanted to play in college or not. And I can remember getting out of high school, going down and coaching when I was 18. And I was like, oh, this is way better than playing football. And I just fell in love. But same thing, it took me 10 years to figure it out. The first 10 years, I would have hated to play for me. He's just a young kid yelling and screaming, you know.
Yeah, and I think there is a mentorship. Like, that's my experience. Like, my experience in coaching and in life is I've had the best mentors, right? And so I've had people show me how to do that. I've never really been thrown in the fire, so to speak, to learn for myself. And to be honest, like, I've never wanted that. I've always sought out, you know, somebody to talk to. I cherish collaboration. I want to be like a uniter and things like that. And so I think I get that from my mom, right? That encourager. Like, we just want to encourage kids, want to, you know, have this be a positive experience.
Yeah. As we start to wrap up, I'll ask a question. Well, I'll ask you two questions. But one is, the season coming up.
Yep.
What expectations do you have just for yourself, other than obviously just say winning the championship? Obviously, what expectations do you have for yourself as a head coach?
Yeah, I would love to see participation just grow, and part of that is because we have had success. I think success is attractive, but we know what our program can do for kids, like we just said. So like we want kids to be here. I think I want to develop continue to develop our program holistically, and so having nutrition be a big part of what we're doing, right? That's something we've always talked about. It's always been a little bit of a hard time to get kids to think about nutrition and how they treat their bodies. I know that they are working out with some of the greatest trainers in the city. I think we have a great trainer on staff with Craig Dennison, our strength and conditioning coach right now, who's in the school. And I think our weight room, you've seen it. Our weight room is I think the best in the area. The equipment is pristine. So I'd like to see nutrition grow and kids take care of their bodies. We've been pretty good with injury prevention. I'd love to see that continue to grow, where we're limiting concussions now. We wore guardian caps last year. We're going to do that again. For practices. We're not going to mandate them games. And so we want to take care of these kids, take care of their bodies, keep their bodies right, have them peaking at the right time when we get in the season. Man, I'm looking forward. This will be our second year at the UMD team camp, right as school gets out on June 16th. I thought last year that was a catalyst for our off-season program and the participation, and we talked about it the other night, we were able to do things a lot faster because we were together those 3 days for so long. So that camp, I'm really hoping that camp, we kind of take the next step at that camp and kind of use that as a stepping stone for off-season program a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
We got great kids coming back, man. I think that's the thing too. We talked about the expectation of winning every year. Well, that just doesn't happen. Yeah. You have to have the Jimmies and Joes. I think we do. Yeah. But how are we developing kids? And so how do you replace Tay Men's? Well, you have a couple of guys who were pretty good last year. If they do the right things in the offseason, we could be just as good, right? We have a quarterback who's going to, a lot like Mace with Lee, 2 years in our system. I want Matt to give him the keys to the car. And I want him to have fun and ball out. And so, that's the other challenge is, from the C team level to the JV level, the expectations of what they're learning every year. And then, so when they get to me at the varsity level, we're ready to ball and to compete. Because, man, Hermantown isn't going anywhere. North Branch isn't going anywhere. Grand Rapids is always good. There are teams in our section, in our district, that are year in, year out. East is on the up and up, right? They got their new staff. I think it's only a matter of time. Rockridge with Brandon they're figuring it out. So everybody's catching up. Cloquet is going to have a new coach and a new system. So they might go through a little bit of a transition, but man, you just can't take a week off in our district. And I love that. We had some discussions, I want our schedule to be competitive. I don't want somebody on my schedule to be like, oh, we're going to beat them by 60. Yeah. That's no good for anybody. Yeah, no. So.
And I'm excited because me and Joe going to be coming on. And
I've been hinting at it the whole time. It's official for sure. But, every single person who's on my staff has been handpicked by me. And when I heard that Joe wanted to coach and he said we should consider bringing you on, I went, let's sit down and chop it up. And I knew right away that would work. But every coach has been handpicked by me, and I think that's what's special about our staff. Is it really is, we're a tight-knit staff. You guys are going to come in, it's going to be seamless for sure. But I think that there is an excitement because I think that's one of the things that we've struggled with the last 2 years with just not being able to find coaches who can able to commit the time at the lower level. Yep. So our JV has struggled a little bit, and our C team with just having enough coaches to coach those kids and to really coach them well and do a good job. So that's my excitement, is to bring in two guys who have been around these kids for a while and have the connections that you guys have in the community. Now you guys are social media influencers and food tasters and having a food tasting festival. I mean, you guys you're going to bring a lot of credibility to the program. And that's one thing. I'm not afraid to leverage that. I want our program to have the best opportunities. Yeah, definitely. We've got some exciting things that are going to be popped off here in a couple of weeks that you're going to hear about off camera. that I can't make official yet, but we've got some really cool things that are happening that are just going to bring, I think this is going to be an amazing season, one that we're not going to forget.
For sure. That's what's up. And then as we wrap up, the question I'd like to ask, we ask everybody this, is if you could go back and say something to a younger you, just say something.
Yeah, man.
What would it be? What would you say?
Oh, man. I mean, I did some stupid things. So I would say there's consequences for actions. And sometimes you have to live with those consequences for longer than you would want. Mm-hmm. And so it took a long time for me to grow up.
Yep.
I didn't get married till I was 38. I met my beautiful wife, Rachel. We have 2 beautiful kids, Toby and Aaron. And now my life is a dream. Mm-hmm. But like there was a time where my life, I was doing things that just making poor decisions. Mm-hmm. And so I would say that, actions have consequences. Mm-hmm. And that's the message to these kids. Yep. It's like, I'm not trying to scare anybody. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying the older you get, the harder things are mm-hmm. sometimes. And you can bring some of those things on yourself and they're avoidable. Yeah. So that would kind of be my advice to myself is like, stay in school, mm-hmm. probably finish college at least. Looking, if I knew what I know now, like where I'm at, because it really has been full circle, man. I never thought my wife would be teaching at Denfeld like my mom. Mm-hmm. I don't have the exact same job as my dad, but I'm a para, he's a para at Denfeld. Like, our lives parallel, mm-hmm. and just even my dad's journey to becoming a para, from Burnix to doing that has been almost the exact same as mine. Yep. And so, our kids are being raised in almost the same way that I was raised with my sister. Yeah. So life's a dream, but right now it is. I'm blessed for sure. But there were some moments there where it's like I made some pretty poor decisions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's good though. I feel like to have coaches in that position that maybe had struggles. Mm-hmm. Not saying like you were prison or anything, but like that road to redemption, it's important for kids to see like, okay, if mm-hmm. I do go through something, coach got through it, I can get through 100%.
It. 100%. And I think one thing too, this is something just my pride is, and there's some shame, like my pedigree isn't like, I didn't go like to a 4-year college, I didn't play ball at a high level. Mm-hmm. I have like 12 years of coaching. Like my pedigree isn't like somebody you look and go like, oh yeah. I want him. Like and I know that, and I've become comfortable with that. But there was a period of time where it's like super self-conscious of how people thought about me. Mm-hmm. I had to stay off of social media because, especially right after I got hired, because of all the negativity, around the program. I was like, why would you hire him? Why would you hire somebody who's been coaching with Huey, who's lost? Like all that negativity that comes with the position for sure, mm-hmm. and rightfully so. I mean, that's why I don't go on social media much. It's because I don't want to see it. I don't want my wife to see it. I don't want my kids to see it. But that does come with the territory. But yeah, man, I'm pretty transparent with people of where I've been and my journey and where I'm at now, and my faith life is, as I said, incredible and 100% can get it with God and has some really cool relationships on the other side. My relationship with CJ Ham has been really cool for our program. Mm-hmm. Like I said, my relationship to Denfeld now being there in the building. We just having you guys like Denfeld football is back, baby.
Yeah, it should be fun.
That's right.
Yeah. It's go time. But hey, thank you for being on with us. It was good to hear your story, and like you said, excited for the season. Excited to see just the next level for these kids too, as they start to grow up, and be able to finally get to a place where at least myself and even Joe can watch these kids develop for 4 years.
You're going to have a blast, man.
Yeah, so 8th grade is fun, but it's pretty good.
That's it.
Well, like always, thanks for joining us, and like, subscribe, and share, and we'll see you next time.
Hunters on 3.